You're listening to the Zoe Turner podcast, business and mindset conversations that will help you move from fear and uncertainty to development and growth so that you can crush both life and business. Please welcome your host, Zoe Turner.
Kris, what are you grateful for today?
You know what? I'm grateful every day for health. I think that's something that we take for granted. I feel like I don't take it for granted. I feel like for probably the last 4 years, I've really realized that health is everything. You can work as hard as you possibly can to build something. You can work 20 hours a day. You can try to achieve all these goals and have all these dreams. But the minutes your health is taken away from you, it all stops. And it means nothing. Everything you've been working for and doing for the last how many years just literally stops.
Yeah.
Because your health is not right. So I'm really grateful just to have my health, my kids' health, my family's health, my fiance's health. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
You've been really open about your mental health struggles in the past, Kris, namely depression, which brings me on to my next question. You work in a job that consistently you have to show up every single day. You can't just put your head under the duvet and not show yourself to the world. Like, how do you do it? How do you maintain and how do you navigate the down days, and what challenges have you experienced?
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes the radio side and what you do on air is actually a bit of an escape. It's that it makes you feel good. Like, I love doing what I get to do on the radio, So even in those horrible times or those horrible days where you may be feeling just like blah, once that microphone goes on and once you're on the radio, you feel good, And I also feel like I've got a responsibility as well, because I know there'd be a lot of people who may be driving to work or whoever got us on, wherever they're listening to us, and they may be going through a heartbreak or, a breakup or the death of a loved one or going through their own issues. And I know that a lot of the time we hear it. People turn us on and they're like, we just love listening to you. You make us laugh, or you make us feel refreshed. And so I feel like there's a bit of that responsibility when I'm not feeling up to it. And that does happen every so often where, it's not that I don't feel up for it. You just have different, your body wakes up differently every morning. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm like, yes, I've got this. Let's go. We're going to have an amazing day. And sometimes I wake up and I'll be like, that alarm goes off around 4:20 every morning. And you're like, oh man, I might have a headache, or I'm just not feeling great. And, you've had an argument with your missus, or, something's not going right. But, you turn up, you have to turn up. That's the responsibility that I've taken in my career. And, if you just want to get it done. You got to get it done. You have a responsibility.
I've just had a little quick look at your Instagram stories from your GITEX talk yesterday. And I'd actually thought about asking you this question before I looked at that story. And let's talk a little bit more about what you were talking about then, because you said that there was at one point, when things were tough, that you couldn't even open the door in the office for when you were going into work. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there was a moment in my life, many years ago, where I had never suffered. I'd never felt what anxiety was, right? I never knew what that was. You would hear people talk to you about it. You would hear people mention it. But if you never experienced it, you can't relate. Right? It's just something that someone says.
100% get that, because I experienced that with my grandfather. When I lost my granddad about 4 years ago, I'd never experienced depression before in my life. And then it just suddenly hit me. Yeah,
you got to be able to relate to people. And, if you haven't gone through something that someone's going through, you can't relate, unfortunately. It's not the other person's fault. I've got a friend of mine who never, ever felt anxiety, and I used to tell him about what I was going through. He couldn't relate to it. And then about 5 years later, he went scuba diving, and he was under the water, and he had just started. This is his first sort of like major dive. And for the first time in his life, he had an anxiety attack. He had never felt it. And so he had this anxiety attack where he just felt helpless, and he felt like he was going to die, and he couldn't breathe and all these things. And he had to get up, and he called me up afterwards. He said, man, all those times you mentioned about anxiety, I had no idea what you were talking about. I thought to myself, this guy, what's wrong with him? Get on with it. He said, I experienced it for the first time over the weekend, and OMG, it's horrible. So, when I felt anxiety, it stemmed from, I don't know where it came from, to tell you the truth. It was brought on, I think, maybe from just everything moving really fast in my life. At one moment I was a single guy living in Australia. The next moment I was living with my, a girl that I had just met. She was now pregnant. I had a baby on the way. I was living in a country where I knew no one. I was in a new job away from my family. And I think just all of that triggered it. And anxiety runs in my family as well. There are a few members in my family that have it. And so I think it just sort of sprawled on then. And I manifested on it. And when you manifest on something, you make it bigger sometimes, right? And I think it just it started small, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger in my head. And there was a point where me going to do my radio show was really difficult, I manifested it so much. I created so much in my head that, am I going to be able to do my radio show? Maybe I won't be able to do my radio show anymore. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I've got a baby on the way. Am I going to be able to live my life? How am I going to support everyone? You have these thoughts, but they're just thoughts. You've just created them in your mind, but they become so real. So those moments when I was going to do the radio show, it was so built up with hours upon days of just thoughts, that it was, when I opened up that studio door, I was finding it difficult to do so. But you get through it. You get through it, and you keep going, and you reach out for help, and you find different ways to handle and deal with it.
And you seem to be in a good place now. Your previous relationship your previous marriages, you've divorced, and you've met a beautiful lady who you're engaged to be married to. What does being in a good relationship mean to you?
Yeah, listen, good relationships mean everything. Now, relationships are so difficult. I think it's something that we take for granted, is being in a good relationship.
Yeah.
And what defines a good relationship? Well, who knows? I think you can only identify that when you're in that relationship. I think a lot of people are in relationships because it's the thing they have to do. They have kids and they're just getting on with their lives every single day. And this is what we have to do. This is what I signed up for. Being in a good relationship, you want to make sure that there's love, respect. And I'm feeling this now with Brianna. We've been together for 6 years. And, it's give and take. It's love. It's respect. It's understanding. It's arguing. It's driving each other crazy. We work together so closely as well. She helps me run Fade Fit as a company. She's the brand manager and really the operations behind it and the backbone. So we're not only are we in a relationship together, we're together in a business as well. So we have our hard times, but I know that, sometimes you click with someone, you realize, okay, this is long term. And, inshallah it is. I'm happy. She's happy. We have our ups and downs like everyone else. It hasn't been easy for her as well. As obviously, being a father to two gorgeous girls, she's joined a man that already has children, who has an ex-wife. There's baggage, right? And that's not easy for anyone to be part of, right? Even though I look at it from my end where I'm like, yes, but we're a happy family and we're amazing. And look at my daughters. For her, she loves them and loves me, but it's something that you've got to adapt to. So I try to put myself into her position, and she puts herself into my position as well, and has to understand how it all is. But we're touch wood in a happy place, and hopefully we get married soon. We were supposed to get married this year, but then the virus sort of just prolonged a few of that happening, and we're just waiting to see when it's going to happen.
You seem to have the awesome family. I was chatting to a friend of mine when we were cycling about a year ago. She's been married for years, and I was saying to her, how do you do it? What's your secret? And she was like, Zoe, she said, these days people just give in too easily. And I think that is so true. Like, we're always, especially I think when you're a little bit older and you've had previous relationships, and it's just so easy to throw in the towel these days. I've experienced something similar myself, and it's just, I think it's just so nice if you can meet someone and just have that commitment that no matter what life throws at you, you're in it together and you're just going to get through it together rather than kind of walk away. And I think as well, you know, these days, because marriage isn't, I know you guys are getting married, but for some people, marriage these days, it just isn't the done thing. You know, they like to be in like long-term relationships. And I just think having that ring on the finger, it's just a good commitment that you're not going to walk away that easy, that you're going to stick at it.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I mean, listen, marriage is not for everyone. You know, I've got a friend right now that lives in Australia that has been with his partner for 22 years and they have 3 children. They're not married. Yeah. It's a formality that they don't want to go through. That may be just for themselves because they don't want to feel like they're locked down, whatever it is.
Maybe.
On paper, they're not married, but everything else they are. Even if they were to split, they would still have to go through a divorce. There would still be the legal increments of everything that they have to go through, right? So I think people do give up. I think people do give up too easily. But you've got to understand, you've got to make sure that you're happy as well. You don't want to be in a relationship where you're not happy. But you can't be selfish about it. You've got to work out, is your partner giving, is your partner trying, he or she trying to deliver in this relationship? If it's a one-way system and you're delivering and you realize you're not getting anything back, well, you know, then there's a different story. Then you can probably say, you know what, I deserve someone to give me that love, that respect, that, you know, that companionship. That's what we want. We want to, but yes, giving up too easy, like when, oh yeah, we're arguing a bit and I don't know, I just don't find him or her attractive anymore. And, you know, it's just whatever. You know, sometimes you got to work through that, you know, and at the end of the day, when you get older, you know, when we're 70 and 80 years old, you want to be with your best friend. You know, you want to be with your best friend. You want to have that companionship. And I, you know, speak to a lot of people about going through relationship issues where I'm like, that honeymoon period that you were after will only last so long. Like a relationship is never a honeymoon period forever, you know, and it does turn into reality. You become best friends, you know, and as long as you've got that best friends, but you've got that connection still and you find each other attractive, I think that's really important. And, you know, one of my friends who recently divorced, you know, I remember speaking to him about his relationship and he was married with kids and he goes, yeah, we don't ever fight. We don't fight. I'm like, gosh, that's so cool that you don't fight. Like, and in my head, I remember telling my partner going, they don't fight. Right. And then about a year and a half later, he tells me, yeah, we're getting a divorce. I was like, wow, how did that happen? Oh, yeah, there's just no connection between us. There's just nothing there. And I'm like, well, maybe that's why they weren't fighting initially because there was just nothing going on. There was no communication. That's why you didn't fight. Because when you're passionate about things and you've got your own views on life and you're discussing things all the time, you have arguments and arguments are normal, but it's the way that you can end the argument that really makes the relationship, I feel, you know, and even the way that you argue, I think is important. You know, there's a way of arguing. There's a way of having still somewhat class and respect for each other when you argue, you know. Yeah. I think that's really important.
100%, because I think when you cross over certain lines, there's definitely no going back. Have you found 100%. Have you found it more challenging navigating your relationship, being in the public eye and being in the UAE?
Not so much. Listen, my whole life is pretty much shared on the radio every single morning, and I get, you know, I share everything. I mean, I share everything on my Instagram. I'm not a person now where I feel like embarrassed to share anything, you know, like I don't, you know, people will always have their views or their comments, which is great. I think that's great to have your views and your comments. Some people feel like they want to share that on social media, even if it's a negative. And that comes with the positives. You know, I may receive 200 positive messages and then just 1 or 2 snarky negatives. And I take it with a grain of salt. It's like, well, it's part of the territory. You know, that's what you got to do. So not really like, I'm happy to share it. I share what I want. There's obviously stuff that I don't put on there. You know, what everyone sees on social media or whatever I say on the radio, there are many things that don't ever make that, you know, because they are probably too personal things that I want to keep within, you know, this household between Brianna and I or 100%. My children and I, you know?
Yeah. I think when you live your life in the public eye, you know, there's and you're letting people into your world, you have to keep something to yourself. But Kris, you've achieved some fantastic things here in the UAE since you've been here, and you connect with the hearts of so many people. Kids love you, moms love you, and I think even the grannies love you. Like, what do you do to connect with your heart?
I don't know. Like, I think just I feel like when I was just our upbringing, I think mum and dad did a really good job, especially mum with the love. I think it's really important. And, you know, I feel not sorry, but, you know, for children that were brought up without that love from their parents, because I really believe that, you know, as a young child, you develop, and the way that you're treated by your parents and the way that you're brought up, I really do believe it plays such a huge role on that person as they get older. And we were brought up in a very warm Lebanese family. There was a lot of love, like from my grandparents, from my uncles, from my mum, from my sisters. You're always hugging, you're always kissing each other, you're always telling each other, I love you. And I think that's so important. And from that connection as a child, I felt like it's brought me through where I am today as a man. And I want to be able to relate. And what I really find important is human connection, being able to connect with someone that I may not know. If I'm saying something on the radio, you know, as we record this interview, you know, Christmas is upon us. And even this morning on the radio, as I know all the mums and dads and nannies and drivers are in the car dropping the kids to school, you know, I received a special envelope from Santa Claus. And that envelope was to say that Santa Claus has just been given permission to travel around the world, and he's going to be in everyone's household, and he's going to be delivering these gifts. So COVID is not going to affect Santa Claus, and he's going to be wearing his mask, and the reindeers are wearing their masks. So Santa Claus, get ready, kids. Yeah. He's coming. He's ready to come to Dubai. He's ready to come to Australia, America. So me saying that at that time, I know what it's going to do. It's going to make a connection with every single mum, dad in that car with their children. You know, and I instantly get messages. Thank you so much for saying that, Kris. That just meant a lot to us. You've really just brightened up the mood. Oh, thanks, Kris. We needed to hear that. My kids are in the car right now loving that news. Thanks. So it's those little things where I want to try to relate to everyone that's listening to the show, you know, or following me on social media. And, you know, I think that's really important. Human connection is just so important. If I can I can't reply to every message that I get on social media, but like, you know, for example, you hit me up on Instagram, and, you know, I want to be able to try to give back where I possibly can. So, you know, you said, do you want to try to do this? You and I have been working on a month trying to get this done, and we finally got it done. You know, but like it's the connection between one another. We've never met. We don't know each other, but I want to try to assist if I possibly can.
Yeah, we have actually met once before, very, very briefly. Do you remember?
No, where?
You gave me an award. I was fighting in a white-collar boxing match, and you presented me with an award. And do you remember who I was fighting?
Was it my ex?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. That would have been like... That would have been like 8 years ago?
2012, that was. Yeah, it was back in 2012 now. And I remember then, like, did you watch the fight? Do you remember the fight?
Not really, but tell me.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, if there'd been a winner, my opponent, your ex Maz, would have definitely won. But there was definitely a bit of a rocky moment in there for me, because I think I was 100% the underdog. I was, I weighed quite a few kg less, and that power, that extra kg when you're in that ring is a lot.
Sure.
And I remember at the beginning of the fight, I went to touch gloves with her at the beginning, and she just like went straight at me, and I think she was trying to knock me out. And but yeah,
my ex could somewhat. I mean, she wasn't a professional fighter or anything like that, but she knew how to throw a punch, right?
She could fight, she could punch, definitely. Yeah. But my endurance really put me in good stead. At the time, I used to do a lot of trail running, 40k trail runs, a lot of endurance, and my recovery was really quick as well. So once I realized how powerful she was, and I just got my standing in that ring, I put up a good fight. And yeah, like people were cheering me on at the end of that fight, because I think it was expected that, I think he was even going to stop, the ref was even going to stop the fight in the first round. And I'm thinking, no, don't you dare stop this fight. I've trained so hard for this. Don't you dare stop it. But no, it was a great experience. She was a great opponent. And I really enjoyed it. And I remember you giving me the award. And I remember thinking then that you just seemed like such a nice guy when you gave me that award. And then I got to follow you on Instagram, and that confirmed pretty much what I thought. Yeah, but so we have met back in 2012, albeit very, very briefly.
Credit on you, on anyone that steps into a fighting ring to fight someone. I've been given the opportunity many times to get into a ring. I've even been offered money to get, and I'm like, no chance. I can fight a little bit. I do a little bit of MMA or boxing or whatever, but to get into a ring and actually fight, I give you credit, because that is not an easy thing to do. Very, very difficult thing. So I'm sure after that, though, that would have changed something about you. I'm sure once you leave a ring, after getting into an actual fight and after all that training, I'm sure you came out of it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I remember having a bit of whiplash, that's for sure. I couldn't move my neck. But yeah, look, I remember leading up to that fight, I do a lot of visualization, and I knew that, because I'd done a little bit of research, and I'd seen Maz on the pads. There was something online somewhere, and I'd come and I could see her, and I thought she's a good puncher. And and even when we weighed in, she was about 5.5 kg heavier than me. I weighed in at 49.5 kg. And so,
because she's a small woman. She's not a large woman.
She's not a big lady, but at the time I was just like tiny. I'm a lot heavier than that now, but 49.5, and that was at the weigh-in. And of course, after the weigh-in, you've cut weight. So when you actually get in that ring, there's going to be a few more kg. And so I knew I was up for a good fight. So I did a lot of visualization before I went into that fight. And yeah, look, I mean, it was like anything in life. When you train and you dedicate yourself to something and you set yourself a goal and you work towards that goal, when you achieve it, no matter whether or not you win or you lose, as long as you just go out there and you give it your best, and I did, I give it the best. Of course, when I got in that ring, every bit of strategy, everything I thought of just kind of went out the window. And but yeah, no, it did change me in many ways. I was just really, I was quite proud of myself, but I don't like being hit. I love doing a bit of pad work and and all of that side of the boxing, but actually being punched, it's not one of the most pleasurable experiences.
Horrible. There's no one. I don't think there's many people that be like, I actually like getting punched. It's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible feeling getting knocked out. It's a horrible feeling. I got put to sleep once by Royce Gracie, who's one of the pioneers of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So he put me in a rear naked chokehold and just knocked me out.
Yeah.
And I mean, even that wasn't pleasant. You're suffocating. So as I said, getting into a ring or a cage is remarkable. So well done. And I'll pass on this to my ex Maz as well.
Okay. Yeah. No, she was a wonderful opponent. So, Kris, what is your biggest fear?
I think biggest fear for me is death. I think it's one of the most common fears that most people sort of face. It's just death in general. One of the things for me is just being a dad, making sure I'm always here for my girls. That's all I want to be able to do. And I think that's what gives me the fear of death. I think before I was a father, whatever, I'll do anything. Jump in out of a plane. I'll get into a boxing ring. I'll do any of that. But when I became a father, it sort of changed. It's always like, got to make sure that I'm okay. Is everything okay? I've got to make sure I've got to look after everyone, so for me, it's death. That is my fear. That is my fear.
Okay. Thank you for answering that truthfully. You speak to a lot of guys and they're like, oh, I don't fear anything. And it's like, come on, you must fear something. Which brings me on to my next question, Kris. You've interviewed some pretty incredible people on the radio, and your career has taken you to some fantastic places. Do you get nervous, or do you get scared about any of these kind of public speaking events or any people that you speak to? Because I still get nervous every time I do an interview. I'm hoping that will get easier over time. But does it? Coming from a seasoned pro, does it?
It doesn't. It's a different feeling. There's nerves definitely in there, but it's more the adrenaline rushing that creates those nerves. So sometimes you got to just work out. It's not nervous. You're capable of doing it. You know you're going to do it, but you're just in this, I know the difference, because when I'm interviewing a big name, I remember flying to Paris to interview The Rock and Kevin Hart earlier this year. And I was nervous, but it wasn't. It was just the feeling of, you want to make sure that it all gets done. You're there for a moment. You want to make sure you get the interview in, right? You just want to get that. So it's more about, it's not being nervous. But when I was interviewing Will Smith, which in that interview, I was proposing to Brianna, which I'm sure you've seen. When I proposed to Brianna, I had Will Smith help me out, right? I realized I was nervous. That was nervousness. And I realized the difference between having the adrenaline in my body running and being nervous. So when I'm interviewing anyone, it's the adrenaline. It's I'm ready to get it done. Let's go. You have this feeling upon you. But when I was doing it with Will Smith, knowing that he was going to help me propose to Brianna and she was on this rooftop hiding away and having no idea, I was nervous. I felt like I was going to faint. I woke up in the morning feeling sick. Like I literally felt my stomach was all over the place. I'm like, did I eat something wrong last night? What's going on? And then I realized, this is what they say when you're nervous. Your stomach's churning. I was nervous. And then I was interviewing Will Smith. And even in the interview, I said to Will, man, I'm not listening to a word you're saying. I'm hyperventilating right now. He's like, I know. He goes, I can understand why. You're just about to go propose to your girlfriend. So I defined that was the difference. So if anyone's jumping on a stage or interviewing someone, a lot of the time it's not being nervous. It's the adrenaline in your body just getting you ready to do something different.
How did that come
and that's
about?
what you just got to work out.
How did that come about with Will? How did it come about that he was going to be there when you proposed to Brianna?
I was asked. Disney contacted me to say, do you want to go do an interview with the cast of Aladdin at the time? And I said, sure. Will wasn't doing any interviews, though, when we were there. It was more to do the other cast. And I asked I said, I want to be able to get an interview with Will if we do go there. If I'm going to take the trip to Jordan, I want to get an interview with Will. I'd interviewed him a few times before. I knew his team. He knew of me. And then I pitched the idea to Disney. I said, you know what, I'm actually planning on proposing to Brianna. And I had another few ideas, but this is something I said, maybe Will can help me do it. They spoke to Will's team. The team spoke to Will. Will was like, I'm 100% in. He calls me up when I get to Jordan, and he was like, are we really going to do this? I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this. And he actually orchestrated a lot of it for me. He came up with the idea of him pretending to take a selfie with Brianna, then get on one knee, and me do that. And so it sort of was. He's such an amazing human being, man. He's a really, I say this all the time. The bigger the star, usually the more amazing that they are. And especially with Will Smith, he's just such a genuine human being. And the coolest thing about it is as I'm proposing to Brianna, Will's holding my phone, my mobile phone, and he's still cool enough to take photos as I'm doing it. So if you look at the video of me proposing to Brianna, after it, I'm on one knee. You see Will Smith with my phone taking photos. I'm like, man, this is so cool. I got Will Smith taking photos of me and Brianna, like crazy.
Awesome. So other than that moment, has there been any other experience or any person that you've interviewed as part of your career that really stands out to you, that you found particularly inspirational?
Listen, the likes of Richard Branson. So Richard Branson, I've interviewed, a number of times, more than 10 times. I've got to hang out with Sir Richard Branson in private settings, one-on-one time with Sir Richard Branson. He's just a cool individual, man. Like what you see is what you get. He's so genuine. You realize why someone is so successful when you see someone like that, when you see him on the outside and you see him on the inside of certain situations, being in closed rooms. So I really find that, the likes of Sir Richard Branson, Gary Vee, I'm not sure if you know who Gary Vee is, but an amazing person on social media, an entrepreneur within himself. Again, just someone that what I love seeing the people that you see on social media or you see on TV. And when you meet them, they're the same people. That's what I love seeing. And so those are the type of people that I just find really, really amazing. Khloe Kardashian, unbelievable. You hear this Kardashian name and you're not sure what you're going to get. And I've had the opportunity of interviewing most of the Kardashians, but Khloe, for me, I've interviewed her a few times. So just always so lovely, always so bubbly, always so real. These people don't have to do this. They don't have to do it. They can sit back and be who they want, but they're great. They're genuine. So there's a few. The bigger the star is, the better they are, I always say.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think a lot of people might think it's the opposite way, but generally I think they just tend to be more down to earth and more real.
Yeah, I don't think they've got anything to prove, so they can just be themselves, And I think that
exactly.
So yeah.
Kris, tell us a little bit more about Fade Fit. I'm beginning to see a lot more new products in the shops now, on the shelves. What was the inspiration behind it, and what is your vision for the future?
So yeah, Fade Fit is it's a brand now that we've created with my daughters and Brianna, and it's what started off to be a bit of a movement within me getting fit because I went through my own fitness and my own transition of just losing a bunch of weight. It was a support network for other people going through it. From there, it's actually turned into right now a healthier snack and multivitamin company. So we do multivitamins for kids, and we do these amazing, tasty, healthier snacks for adults and for kids. We have a bunch of different snacks on the shelves across the UAE right now, and it's slowly exporting across to other markets. And there's a huge expansion plan that we're working on over the next 6 months, where we'll be in other aspects of what we're doing. And there's even a bigger, for 2022, we've already got some things lined up for 2022. So it's a brand that I want to create, and we've created. That is, I want it to be a trusted brand in the market where you're going to get something of positivity, of health, of love, of family. So whatever we put out, it's always relating back to what we're trying to do. And that's just create a brand better for you. It's whatever it is, be it a snack or a multivitamin or a drink. It's something that's better for you. Health is everything, as we started this conversation with what we're, what we take, what do I want out of life? It's health. I think that's the basis of where it is, because once you take health away from us, it goes. And, right now, a lot of us put really bad things into our body all the time. I'm not someone who is Mr. Health all the time. There's a time and place for a cheat meal or some treats or having the kids have some chocolate. I'm all for that. Taking the kids to go to McDonald's to have a treat. I'm all for that. But I think we've got to just make sure that we balance it the right way. It can't be bad preservatives. We don't know what we're putting in our body, chemicals, smoking, and this is the other end. We need to sort of balance it out to be around like this. This is what I'm always saying. Try to get the goodness. Have your little cheats every so often, but, look after what you're putting in your body. Food is medicine at the end of the day for our bodies. What we put in it makes us feel better. Yeah. And I felt that firsthand.
100%. Kris, last year you tried your hand at acting. I never saw the movie, but I was doing some work with Casey, the lead actor in that movie.
Love it.
And he said that you put the professional actors to shame. He said you were absolutely awesome. You just walked on set and you were just a complete pro. How was that experience for you? And have you acted again? And do you have any further plans, or would you like to act further in the future?
No, listen, firstly, Casey's amazing. He's a legend. Acting for me, I can't learn a script. So the reason why I did all right on that is that the director at the time, I told him straight out, dude, I can't learn a script. I find it very difficult to learn scripts. What we do on the radio is live. What I do on my social media is live. What I do in front of a camera, if I'm at the Oscars with OSN, whatever, it's live. It's not scripted. So when someone gives you a script and says, here you go. So what I did is I just learned the act. I learned the role. And then I went on in front of the camera and just delivered lines as I wanted to deliver them. It still went with the story. So I found it easier to be able to do that. And thankfully I did. I enjoy doing it. Do I want to do it long term? No. It's such a tedious thing. These actors, I feel sorry. Like, you're on set for 7 hours to get 3 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. On radio, it's just so go, 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 go. It's spontaneous. It's live. So it's just, it's something that I don't mind dabbling in every so often if there's an opportunity to do something small, but to do it full time, no.
Okay. And if you ever do that again in the future, you should speak to a friend of mine. I've interviewed him on my podcast. He's a memory coach, Josh McCartney.
I think I've had Josh on my show. Is he Australian?
Yes, yeah.
He's a singer. Yeah, I've had him on my show.
He's a singer.
Yep.
And I'm telling go on.
I met Josh at the gym. I was training at the gym, at a gym, and he came up to me and he said, hey, mate, nice to meet you. We got talking. He said, I'm an artist, et cetera, et cetera. And then he told me he's a memory coach, brought him on the show. He did a couple of things, which was super cool. No, I know all about him. The mind is powerful when you want to use it the right way.
Yeah, there's so many amazing accelerated learning techniques that you can use to kind of remember things. I've incorporated them in the past, and yeah, it's absolutely incredible. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the being live and the scripted and the differences between that. Kris, I'm going to ask you one last question, because I think I said to you half an hour and I don't want to go, and I know we've gone a little bit above half an hour. You talk a lot about the UAE being a place that you're very happy, that you've made your home, and that you really enjoy living in. What is it do you love about the UAE?
I just think I love there's many things. It's not just one, but one of the things is the acceptance and the tolerance I feel. When I moved from Australia back in 2008 and I moved here, I didn't know anything about any other religion or culture. I mean, I knew a little bit, but I know so much about everyone's culture, everyone's religion. I know what people are celebrating every year. I know what people are eating at their homes from around the world. I've met the most amazing people. There's not a country in the world that I don't think I could travel to where I wouldn't know someone because of this country that I live in now. So that's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons is just their drive. I feel like they're just always wanting to move forward. They always want to develop the next thing. They want to be first. And I love that about them. There's no dream there's nothing that's not possible. And that's what I love about the city. And that's what I love about the country. The vision that they have looking forward. It's remarkable to have that, and this is not throwing shade on any other country, but I go home to Australia sometimes and I feel like we're stuck in the 80s or the 90s. I love home. Home is Australia's gorgeous, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. My family all reside there. But I just feel like we're stuck. We're stuck in an era that I come back to this city or in this country. I'm like, whoa, it's fast-paced moving. We've got this building. We're trying this future technology. We're doing that, and that's what I love about it. It's just the forward momentum of what it does. And it pushes you to be a better person. I wouldn't be able to do what I was doing now back home in Australia. No chance. It's this city and this country that gave me the abilities to do so.
Where do you see yourself in the future? Do you see yourself moving back home to Australia? Maybe America?
Not in the immediate future. No, not in the immediate future. I mean, we're loving it here and I love everything about it. If an opportunity, depending on how Fade Fit goes as a company as well, if that expansion plan starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, there may be a reason for me to have to move somewhere else. But radio will always be in me, and I always want to do the Virgin Radio gig. Like, for me, that's my heart. It's my passion. It's my love. So right now, no, home is the UAE, and I don't see it looking elsewhere. But, further down the line, who knows? I miss my family. I miss Australia. I miss being able to be next to my mum and dad every day and pop over to see my brother and my godson and my sisters. I came for 2 like many people do, and it's been 12. So, who knows? No one knows that. I don't know that. But right now, it's home and I'm happy.
Okay, amazing. Kris, thank you for being such a fantastic guest. Very short but sweet. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an amazing chat and I appreciate it as well. So thank you.